Everyday hypnosis, as I like to call it, is simply describing the same kind of hypnosis that a hypnotist does, but done by other people without really realizing they're doing it. You see, has anybody ever said to you, "Oh, this film is amazing. You've got to go see this film at the cinema. It's absolutely brilliant." And you believed them that the film was good? Yes, of course you have. They've told you a book was great, or a magazine was great, or a TV show was great. And you believed them. Certain people, maybe not so much. If somebody's trying to sell you their book, maybe your filters come up and you go, he wrote the book, he's telling me it's good, I don't necessarily believe it. But when a friend of yours that you trust tells you, you accept that suggestion. Well, there's no difference really between a hypnotist telling you to quit smoking, to lose weight, to become more confident, to become more motivated, and you accept the suggestions of being an ex-smoker, being somebody who is confident and happy or motivated, and accepting a suggestion that a film is good. You might go to the cinema, see that film and have a congruent response to it. You might think it's an amazing film. You might go to the cinema and think, well, that was a rubbish film. But up until that point, you believed the suggestion. Now, that's kind of fairly harmless, I mean, at worst, you've wasted an evening and $20 on a film and eaten some popcorn and sat in a stuffy theatre environment and got rained on the way to the cinema. Or worst that's going to happen, really, right? But what about the kind of things that people do that you don't notice that aren't good for you? So people say things to you, "Oh, you know how you feel really stressed when such and such happens?" And they're saying, "You know how you feel really stressed." Well, that's like hypnosis. It's a command. You feel really stressed, especially with the downward inflection there. Makes it a hypnotic command. Really, they're talking about themselves, and they're saying, "I feel really stressed when such and such happens." And you should make them own that language. Otherwise, they are suggesting things to you about how you should feel with regard to certain situations. And enough times people keep saying the same thing over and over and you'll believe it. It's why the studies that were done years ago about therapists having shorter life expectancies and higher suicide rates, because for 8 hours, 6 hours a day, they're listening to people come in and talk about, "You know how you feel really bad. You know how this happens," and they're depressed, they're anxious, they've had enough, and they're putting all this on the therapist, who is just sitting there absorbing it all. It's time to notice those everyday hypnosis, the well-meaning friends and family and people that you work with and people that you socialize with that just say stuff, and they say how you should feel and how you feel about certain things. Well, if it's you feel really excited about such and such, so long as they're not trying to sell you such and such, maybe it's a good thing to take on board that excitement about the subject and the topic. If it's feeling bad or feeling stressed about something, well, it's time to recognize that consciously, let them own it, or better still, have them change their perspective, widen their focus. And just because something happens doesn't mean you have to feel a certain way about it. That's X happens, causes Y. It's cause and effect. It's a complex equivalence. One thing happens and it makes something else happen. One thing happens and it causes something else to happen. It doesn't. Because something happens, you choose to react to it in that way. So widen their experience. Let them own their language. Widen their experience and reject the negative everyday hypnosis that just kind of happens when people talk.